David here with Figboot on Pens, back again with another fountain pen review. Today I have the latest in the line of Benu Euphoria models which incorporate hand-painted artwork. And this might be my favorite one to date, and it's being released today. Well, today if you are watching this the day that I post it. It is called the Steamboat Master and incorporates the imagery of the first appearance of Mickey Mouse in a Disney cartoon, which was Steamboat Willie. What I'm going to do today is discuss a little bit about Steamboat Willie, talk a little bit about public domain laws and how this pen can exist. I'll go over the parts and features of this pen, what I care for and what I don't care for about it. I'll show some measurements, size comparisons, and provide a writing sample. Thanks go out to the good folks at Benu for providing this pen for review. The pen arrives in this standard Benu box. They've actually redesigned the outside of their boxes recently to depict some of the other pens produced by their company, which is nice. Inside, we have a couple of things. We have a standard international long cartridge. There is some generic warranty information, and then there is a little bird's nest of shredded paper protection that just kind of helps protect the pen while it's shipping. And then inside of this cardstock sleeve, we have a pen. Let me set this other stuff aside. This is the Benu Euphoria Steamboat Master. The pen is made from a pearlescent white acrylic resin, and the defining feature of the pen is the Mickey Mouse art. This is how Mickey looked when he made his debut in the cartoon Steamboat Willie. As I mentioned, this is hand-painted art, and the ink splatter background will be different on every single pen. I really like that splatter look. I think it complements the Mickey art well. The Mickey art does a good job of sitting in front of the background rather than blending in with it. It's not flat. There's a bit of a 3D element to it. The artist did a good job of adding depth to the image. When Walt Disney first released the short film in November of 1928, it was groundbreaking for the time. It was one of the first cartoons to use synchronized sound and would go on to become one of the most critically acclaimed and popular cartoon films in the world. Now, let's quickly talk about public domain. This could be a lengthy discussion, but to just break it down to the essence, Steamboat Willie's version of Mickey Mouse has entered the public domain, which means that people can use the name and imagery free of cost and free from litigation. It has been said that the Walt Disney Company is an intellectual property litigation firm which happens to own a few theme parks. It's also known within the law community that the quickest way to figure out what it's like to get sued is to sell unlicensed Disney art on the internet. As they say, trademarks are useless unless they are enforced, and Disney certainly enforces theirs. Just as an example, Dracula, the 1897 novel by Bram Stoker, is in public domain, so you can reprint and sell the original book without having to pay anyone. You can use any of the characters or fictional locations from the book in any work of fiction that you like. You can have Dracula go into space if you want. It's free to use. The same goes for Mickey Mouse, but be aware that it's only the Steamboat Willie version of Mickey, which is in the public domain. Other more modern versions of Mickey are still protected under copyright and trademark law, which can last up to 95 years since its creation, which is why Mickey from 1928 is now in public domain. But the more modern Mickey, let's say from the movie Fantasia, won't be in public domain until the year 2035. Okay, let's get to the parts and features of this pen. The top of the cap is slightly rounded. This transitions into the traditional Benu clip. The cap angles up slightly. It is faceted. There are 10 facets. I do like this pearlescent white resin that they used. It has some character to it. I like that there are some slightly less pearlescent swaths that are mixed in. It gives the material a bit more personality. Benu tends to have a bit over-the-top look in regard to sparkle and flare. While there are many folks that love that aspect of Benu pens, I personally prefer the ones that are a bit more toned down, which I feel this resin is. Then we have the cap band, which isn't a band in a traditional sense, but it is a different type of sparkly white resin. And then on one of the facets, there is the company name filled with a silver lacquer. There is a medium to large step down from the cap to the barrel, which pretty much immediately begins tapering down until you reach the end of the barrel, like the top of the cap is slightly rounded, but also has a sliver of transparency, which is an interesting look. The cap twists off in 2.5 rotations. Something I do like is there's only a single entry point for the threads, so the clip will always line up with the artwork, which is nice. Once you have removed the cap, you are presented with a stainless steel number 6 Schmidt nib. Schmidt marks their nibs prominently in the middle there. You can see that this one has a B for broad. This nib is available in fine, medium, or this broad. And here's a look at the plastic feed. The section begins with a flare and then angles up until you reach the threads, which are actually part of the barrel. Then there's another straight portion before an angled step up to the remainder of the barrel. The material used on this section and forward portion of the barrel is the same that's used on the cap band. The section is a decent length and isn't quite as thin as other Benu models, so it fits my personal preferences well. The pen is plenty long enough to use unposted. Even though there's a lacquer outer coating on this artwork, I typically would be hesitant to post on a pen that contains hand-painted art, but with this pen, the actual contact point between the cap and the barrel here is at the back, and the cap doesn't even come in contact with the portion of the pen containing the artwork. So that's a nice feature if you like to post your pens and were afraid of damaging the artwork. With this one, though, personally, I prefer to use it unposted. The Benu Euphoria Steamboat Master is available at a large number of retailers and sells for $280, which has pretty much been around the standard price point for Benu's hand-painted models. Some of their other non-painted Euphoria models retail for around $160. With the artistic labor which goes into the creation of a pen like this, it's understandable that it will come at a bit of a premium compared to the standard models. But like I said, the price is in line with most of their other hand-painted models, some of which I will show you again during the size comparisons. This might be one of my favorite Benu models they've released. While I'm not a huge Disney guy, I like the toned-down nature of the acrylic. I think the pops of color and the splatters are executed very well, in my opinion, and the Mickey art looks nice as well. It's a pretty solid offering. Okay, now it is time for some measurements, size comparisons, and a writing sample with a very nice broad nib. Here we go with some size comparisons for the Benu Steamboat Master. I wanted to show you again that artwork. I just think it turned out really nice and like the way it looks, especially with the splatters in the back. I think that really adds to the imagery here. So in regard to a couple of their other hand-painted models, this one was called Beam Me Up, which had a kind of cute space theme. And then this one was called the Northern Lights. And this one actually glows in the dark. And then here was one called The Little Prince, based on the famous book. And then finally, this was one of their first models, which was called the Golden Flame. And as you turn this, I just really like how the image or the elements inside the resin play with the fire. So as I turn this, it almost looks like the flame is kind of crackling and sparkling. So I just think that's a really interesting look and a way to integrate something inside the resin with something outside. And that's on a different model than the Euphoria. In regard to a couple of non-Benu pens, here it is with a TWSBI Diamond 580 Iris. Here it is with a Pilot Vanishing Point. Here it is with a Lamy All-Star. And then finally, I actually have another brand new pen from Benu, which will be released here in the next few weeks and will be reviewed. This one is called the Astro Gem. And it's a bit of a different shape for them. And there's a whole story about how this pen came to be. This one here is called the Lido or Ledo. And then I have one more here, which is called the Apollo. And they are named after asteroids that somewhat resemble this pen. So that's what it looks like in comparison to the Steamboat Master. In regard to uncapped comparisons, this is what it looks like with the All-Star and the TWSBI Diamond 580. And then here it is with that new Astro Gem. Okay, here we go with the writing sample for the Benu. And this is the Steamboat Master. This is a broad stainless steel nib, and I just thought the ink needed to pop a bit out of here, so I went with one of my favorite reds, which is Diamine Poppy Red. Here is what the ink looks like. It's just a nice solid red that just has some vibrance to it and pops. Something similar to Monteverde's Strawberry Shortcake. And then here it is with Three Oysters Chili Red. I hate when I smudge it like that. But let's go ahead and go with the rest of the writing sample. This broad nib is very nice. You can't get a little bit of flex out of there if you push it a little bit. The ink flow, I'd say, is very generous coming out of this nib. In regard to reverse writing, it's a little scratchy, but does lay down a nice fine line. And in regard to some fast writing, the feed keeps up very well. So there we have the Benu Steamboat Master. Like I said, I think this is one of my favorite Benu models that they've come out with. I just think it looks really sharp, and I care for the artwork. And this pen is a nice size as well, so it works for me on a lot of different levels. Okay, until next time, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later.